Why not try to... Okay, so story time. I've told you guys that I grew up in a small conservative town. I went away to college, moved back into this town, which is probably more like 60% conservative, 40% liberal now. However, a lot of the people I went to high school with were pretty conservative people. I got a little bit frustrated lately with, this talk on like Facebook, for instance, about, people misunderstanding Charlie Kirk as being a racist. And, obviously I do this on this page, on this channel, and I do this on a lot of socials. But, in the last few years, I've been leaving that stuff off of my personal Facebook page. But I decided to make this video about Charlie Kirk for a couple of reasons. One, I thought I need to definitely not be silent about this. People I went to high school with, people in my family, they need to know exactly how I feel about this. And secondly, if I'm being honest, I wanted to be able to purge people from my life who can watch this video and still come to the conclusion that Charlie Kirk is not a racist. So this is the video that I made for them.
Black people are only 13% of the population, yet they commit 55% of the murders. Why?
First of all, that's a blatant lie, and Charlie Kirk knew this. Black people account for 13% of the population and 51% of the arrests for murders. We also account for 60% of the exonerations of those arrests, so that points more to black people being falsely accused rather than black people are committing all these numbers of murders that Charlie Kirk is trying to attribute to the black community. But it gets worse.
Because Black people tend to be in lower economic statuses because of
Okay, no, this
CRT,
is fine. This is great.
Basically.
So you think that poverty equals crime?
I think that it's highly correlated, and there's a lot of studies
This is where
on
we
that.
disagree. What an insult to the working poor of this
why do you
country.
think-
Although this young lady was asking all the right questions, she really didn't have the rebuttals to all his talking points. Research consistently shows that poverty is the strongest predictor of crime. Like nothing else even gets close to it.
I think black people commit more
Well,
crime.
first
Charlie
of all,
Kirk.
so let me ask you a question as
No,
my
answer it. Go on.
What percentage of blacks have a father around when they're raised?
I'm not sure.
20%.
So that's why you
80% of
think it
blacks
is.
do not have a stable father around.
That is absolutely not true. And Charlie Kirk knew this. Studies show that 49% of black kids do not have a father living in their home. But that does not mean their father is not in their life. Charlie Kirk knew this when he said it, but he told that blatant lie anyway. And then he takes that lie and makes this next statement based off of that lie, which to me is one of the most damaging things you could ever say about the black community.
It is the most predictable way to end up in prison, end up as a murderer or a criminal.
And why
It's
do
not a
you think that's
racism
a problem?
It's not a white supremacy problem. It's a fact that black fathers impregnate women and they don't stay around with the women
And
that they have
why-
impregnated.
Charlie Kirk, do you think that happens more in the black community compared to others?
It's threefold. Number one, we subsidize single motherhood. Number two, it's culture. It's accepted in the black community, and it
so
shouldn't
it's
be.
culture.
It's cultural. It's accepted in the black community for men to impregnate women and basically run away from their responsibilities. He said that. And again, he said that based on the lie that 80% of black kids are growing up without a father. You can, on one hand, say that Charlie Kirk was this amazingly intelligent person, and then on the other hand, say that he didn't know exactly what he was doing when he made up those statistics and told those lies. Those were racist statements. You can twist yourself into any pretzel you want to try to make those statements okay, but they're not, and they're blatant lies, and they're racist. So that video was short and sweet, but I pointed out 3 lies that he told about black people in that one short clip that he made. And there were people who still came to the conclusion that he wasn't racist. I had one guy say, the Charlie Kirk might have been trying to use stats from like the 60s when the black fatherless home numbers were higher than, the 49% that you said. It was probably around 70% back then. First of all, Charlie Kirk wasn't born in the 60s. He was 31 years old. Why would he use stats from the 60s if he was trying to be genuine in a conversation or a debate with someone? He would either be doing that to be deceitful or to lie, or this guy was wrong. That's not something Charlie Kirk was doing. Not to mention, if you're going to talk about black fatherless homes in the 60s, you would have to talk about the mass incarceration, racism and all of those things that led to that. So that was one thing that someone said. So instead of looking at what Charlie Kirk said, taking him at his word and saying that is a lie, he was trying to make excuses for someone that he did not know personally. My point is, all I can go off of is what he said. And what he said was a lie. So then we, but personally for me, I thought the 13%, 55% that, you have all of these white racists using all the time, that's obviously misinterpreted all the time as well. But my biggest problem with the entire thing was that I grew up in this town, right? I'm one of, I think there were maybe 7 black people that graduated in my class. I've been a coach, an educator, a trainer, a father in this community now for 25 years. My oldest daughter is 24, soon to be 25. I've raised 2 exceptional daughters who were 4.3 students in high school, went to colleges that are pretty prestigious and did very well there while being student athletes as well. Like my resume for being a pillar of my community, a great father, husband, all of that is exceptional. And everyone would agree with that. So for me, for people to hear him say that it is accepted in my culture that black people are okay with black men impregnating women and then leaving away, like just not taking care of that responsibility, for people to hear that and not come to the conclusion that those are racist statements, I can't. So I decided anyone who tried to argue those things, I'm not doing this with you. I laid it out. If you come to the conclusion that he's not racist, I'm fine with that. I'm just not engaging with people who could come to that conclusion. I'm not going to consider someone a friend who comes to that conclusion. And, I've said this to you guys many times. It is very easy for me to just get rid of people in my life. Like especially at my age now, at the age of 50, I'm not keeping people with toxic beliefs in my life at all. And so I decided to just, purge a lot of people. And some of those people were close, people that I had been close to for years. One of these people shared a video of one of these black conservatives who basically gives or puts a black face on Charlie Kirk's racism. One of those people who, these people can point to and go, hey, look, that guy says, Charlie Kirk isn't racist. So Coach D over there must be being irrational to think that Charlie Kirk is racist, because this articulate black man who sounds like he knows what he's talking about, who obviously has paid a lot of attention to this and done the research, he says Charlie Kirk wasn't racist. So Coach D must be being irrational. I'm actually fine with you coming to that conclusion, but just understand, I am no longer engaging with you. I can't engage with someone who comes to the conclusion that someone is not racist when they made an absolutely obvious racist statement. So it's caused a little bit of a ripple, and honestly, if I'm being real, it is actually refreshing for me. It's refreshing for me to purge people out of my life. Like, it doesn't really bother me. But what does bother me, and I think I said this in a text to someone that was reaching out to me about this post that I put up, was that I don't think a lot of people who think they knew me actually knew me. And recently I went on a drive with a black friend of mine. We went actually to a gun store to look at some firearms. And we were talking about this and how much like a lot of our white friends who we grew up with, who we've even been around lately, don't actually know us. Like they haven't actually been privy to like who we really are. And some of them didn't really care to ask. And some of them are now asking because I've been putting more things out there. But this isn't the first time I was putting things out there. When the murder of George Floyd happened, I started putting things out there then, and I purged some friends then because they didn't care about what I was feeling about things that were happening to black people. And so I just came to this conclusion that, and I've said this to white friends of mine. I said, if you have a black friend that you haven't had a conversation with about race relations in this country, you don't actually have a black friend. You think you have a black friend, but you have a black associate. Because if you haven't felt comfortable enough to ask that black friend about all of these things that are going on, and that black friend of yours haven't been comfortable enough to actually bring it to your attention, it's because they don't feel like you're a good enough friend for them to talk about it. So yeah, so maybe they hang around you. Maybe they go on a couple of things with you. But if you've never had a deep conversation with your black friend about obvious things in this country that affect them, you don't have a black friend. You really don't. And I think what's hard for some people in my life to realize is that they were never really a real friend of mine. And it's hard for them because they really thought they were. And what they don't realize is that I do have friends that I have had those conversations with. And now I'm at a point that I don't even want to have associates anymore. Like, I want true friends, people that will have those conversations with me and not even always agree with me, but that will at least say, you know what, I'm going to reach out and have this conversation. And I want to end this with this. I did have a guy reach out to me. He had some issues with something I had posted a couple of days before. And it was basically me saying, people keep saying, Charlie, just watch more of his videos and you'll find out that he's not a racist. And this guy was like, I just think he's a good Christian guy and this and that, Then I posted that video yesterday, the video that I showed you guys on this video here. And he reached out to me. He said, hey man, thanks for posting those clips. He goes, my algorithm is probably just different. All I saw was the post from Charlie Kirk saying, things about Christianity and stuff like that. And I just considered, hey, that's a good Christian guy. He's like, I did not realize. He goes, when I saw your video, then I decided I need to do a deep dive. And he's like, wow, the dude is definitely a racist. And I don't know how people didn't come to that conclusion. And I just want to apologize to you for even even saying that, you were wrong in the first place. Like, I'm glad you posted those videos. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. And he even was like, and I understand if you never want to talk to me because, I couldn't imagine being in your shoes as a black man having to explain to people like this guy is a racist, And I had a couple of people reach out to me with that same message. And I really did respect that. But yeah, I guess, my biggest overarching thought in this video is that, because I know I have a lot of white people that follow me and stuff. And maybe some of you think, you might be in this situation too, where you think like, dang, I do have this black friend that I think I'm good friends with, but we haven't had those deep conversations. You got to have those deep conversations. You have to have the uncomfortable conversation with your black friends, with your white friends and so forth, because I think some of these people, I think what it showed me was that some people just don't know, but then it also showed me that some people know and they don't care. Period.
Don't want no enemies or ops. Envy in their heart, I tell them stop. Vacation on the